My name is Ruckus, and I'm 10-8. All right, let's get this party started. There we go. All right. Let's wait a minute here, see if anybody comes on. All right, well, that's okay. I want to go over a few things that I've noticed during the search and the evidence, and dispel some rumors about time of death, cause of death, manner of death. Everybody's taken things for granted that they're true when we're not sure. The biggest thing, I think, is because of the Ron Logan search warrant. That came out and let me get rid of this chat. Go back to the regular one. I'm still learning here, guys. So you're gonna have to forgive me with some of this stuff. Get it off of there, bring it back over here. All right, looks like it's working. There we go. Okay, so because of that Ron Logan search warrant, right, says they were looking, and that was a plethora of information. It really was. It's not a matter of, was it informative? It's a matter of whether or not they've shown their hand a little bit, I guess. The FBI and ISP in Carroll County looks like they had different ideas in the beginning. Excuse me. The FBI was really fixated on Ron Logan. But their search warrant said they were looking for bladed weapons and digital media, digital storage, saying that in her experience that these kind of crimes, people take souvenirs and take pictures and store them on digital data, digital devices for use afterwards and further use and disseminating these things. So it comes off as, and I'll admit that I fell into that trap as well. It comes off as that that's what they're looking for a knife. And all of this, the totality of all of this, is because of that bullshit leaked texts from the guy who allegedly found the girls and texted everybody, was texted somebody, and they got leaked and they got put out to everybody, those texts, saying that, you know, they saw a deer and that's what made them look down, and they saw the girls. One of them was clothed, one of them was not. One of them was stabbed in the chest and in the neck, and the other one was nearly decapitated, and covered with leaves and sticks and all that. And it turns out all that's bullshit. It's bullshit. Sad state of affairs if people do shit like that, but it's all bullshit. So everybody's fixated on bladed weapons, and that the girls were stabbed and slashed and cut. But law enforcement hasn't put that out at all. They haven't put out, nor has the coroner. So they haven't put out cause of death, manner of death, or time of death. The only thing law enforcement has said that I can find is that it was all over by 3:30. Now, how do they know that? I don't know. I have no idea. I tried to think of how would they know time of death like that. But for some reason, they were able to say it was all over by 3:30. And I'm not even, you know, positive about that either. I don't know how they would come up with that. But so we've been steered, we've been led to believe, not through speculation, but through sensationalism. These people just, I don't know, they're bored, I guess. I don't know. So we don't know if the girls were stabbed, shot, strangled. We don't know that yet. Now, Robert Ives put out that it was a very strange crime scene, physically strange. So what does that mean? I mean, he wouldn't elaborate. I mean, he can't. But what does that mean, a strange crime scene physically? You know, what could that be? And here's what makes me think, you know, the day after the murders, people went down to the crime scene where it was taped off, and they took pictures, and some of them would be splashing behind me here, and Ron Logan actually went there with a news crew, and he pointed out, yeah, that area over there where it's all matted down, that's probably where they found them. Now, we've all heard that there was a lot of blood loss, so whoever killed these girls should have blood on them, a lot of blood on them. So everybody's been fixating on that as well. Well, I haven't heard one person, not one single person, and there were people that went there afterwards. I don't know if it was morbid curiosity or what, but they went there afterwards, and nobody mentioned blood or that an area had, because, you know, folks, this was February. There was leaves on the ground. There wasn't many on the trees. They were on the ground. Now, granted, that late in the season, it's almost spring, so they're not all crispy and crunchy as they were in the fall, but there would have been an area that was raked clean by law enforcement, by the forensics folks, crime scene techs. So nobody mentioned that. There's no pictures of that. So, you know, I don't know what to think of that. If there wasn't a bunch of bloody leaves and a bloody scene and blood on the trees, and stuff like that. Okay, so what? Now we get back to what's the what made it physically strange? You know, was there something under the bodies that contained the blood? You know, was there a plastic or a tarp or something? And I'm definitely speculating here. I'm just throwing out scenarios. What would make a crime scene outdoors strange? So, and like I said, we don't know the time of death, the manner of death, the cause of death. We don't know any of that. So it just really lets your mind wander. But and this isn't a theory. This is an uneducated guess here. But there's a gentleman that lived in that area that I believe found the girls. His name is Patrick Brown. They call him Pat Brown. Now, somebody did a covert audio recording of Ron Logan. These two women were driving around, and they're from Fort Wayne, and I guess they pulled up to his yard or into his driveway, actually, or whatever, but they spoke with him, and they covertly recorded what he was saying. Now, I know there's people out there that think that Ron Logan is involved, and he may be unknowingly involved to some point. I mean, this happened on his property, you know, and we'll go into that a little bit more in a second, but he mentioned that, you know, and one of the women, and they were baiting him. There's no doubt they were asking him questions for their own benefit, but they asked him, you know, who found the girls, and he said, Pat Brown, my neighbor. And they're like, who? Patrick Brown. Somebody on the other side of the bank saw clothes across the bank, so he went down there and he found the girls, and they were right out in the open, and I don't know how they got missed the night before and stuff like that. So that kind of stuff gets me going. You know, that's the shit that keeps me up at night. So if you look at what's going on behind me right now, actually, the chopper footage, you'll actually see Pat Brown's truck. Okay, now allegedly, while he was looking for the girls, I guess he went to Ron Logan's house, asked him. Ron Logan got home at around 6:30. I wasn't there, but this is what the official timeline is. So he got there around 6:30, and that's when Pat Brown asked him, you know, hey, you know, can I search your property and stuff like that? So, and that was on the 13th. So he said, sure, you know, so they searched around and stuff like that. But it wasn't until the next day, and Pat Brown parked at the cemetery, in the corner of the cemetery, and went down to the creek from that side, allegedly because somebody on the other side of the creek said that they saw articles of clothing. I'm pretty sure it was like in the water up against the bank on that side. There was actually a cameraman that said that as well, that as soon as he seen the clothes about 75 yards away, he knew the girls wouldn't be far from there. So in my eyes, Pat Brown discovered the girls, and they're out in the open. Everybody is in line with that. Everybody agrees with that. They were out in the open. It may have been a swale that they were in, but they were definitely in the open. It shouldn't have been hard to find them, to see them, even in the dark, out in the open like that. So if you take that at face value, okay, so if he found the girls, Pat Brown found the girls. And it wasn't this other guy who put out these texts saying that, you know, it was him and his brother-in-law or something like that, and described the crime scene. So, well, now we're back to square one. Nobody knows what the crime scene looked like. So everybody knows I'm a little biased. If law enforcement doesn't say it, doesn't happen. I'm cynical at best. But if they did not describe the crime scene at all, I've said it was very strange. So that's it. I mean, that's what we have to go on. He mentioned the word non-secular, which has some religious overtones to it. But if he's never seen a non-secular crime scene, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't know. I have no idea. It's a small town. So, hi Sylvia. I'm sorry. I just seen the chat. No, I'm not local. I'm from Florida. I don't live in Indiana, anywhere near. I've never been to Indiana. But I'm a retired law enforcement, so I like to just give my opinion and look over things and see what makes sense to me. Like I said, I'm cynical and abrasive at best. So I'm one of these that really pisses me off, the way these rumors just take hold and everybody just goes apeshit with them. They run with them. Okay. Well, and I don't like dropping names like this at all. But I spoke with Eric Williams today, and he was actually one of the searchers on the 13th. Libby's Uncle Joe is a friend of Eric's, and he said that he called him at around 4 o'clock on the 13th. Now, that may have been, I'm not saying he's lying, but he probably didn't remember. It had to be a little bit later than that, because I don't even know if Derek contacted any of the family by 4 o'clock. But yeah, I agree, Teresa. I agree. He is suspicious. And from what I understand, I haven't seen a whole bunch. I hate Reddit. Those of you that know me, I don't like any of that shit. But I guess his alibi was sketchy at best, and the person who provided his alibi has passed away. So there's no way to follow that up. But my point is not, I don't have a POI in all of this. I don't. He is sketchy. I'll agree with that. But the reason I brought his name up is because I believe that he found the girls. It wasn't this other person, this JJ or Jake or whatever the person was. That's just a bunch of bullshit somebody made up. I'd put money on it. But all right, so if we don't know, I just read that today too, Teresa, the police officer's suicide. I did read on that today, but again, I found that on Reddit. So again, that carries 0. I'm not saying it's a lie at all, but Reddit is just crazy. I mean, it's crazy. There is no forum. I looked on a few of them that other people have said, hey, these ones are pretty good. Delphi, docs and stuff like that. But I look at those too, and I just don't believe most of it. Honestly, if you don't get the information straight from law enforcement, I don't trust sources, people that say, oh, well, I have a credible source. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. I'm retired law enforcement, and I worked in a very sensitive area of law enforcement, and nobody ever asked me shit. I was never anybody's credible source. So, and I know none of my friends were either. So, I don't know. I trust law enforcement only. I'm biased as hell, but you can't go wrong. Now, you can say, and a lot of people do, that law enforcement's stupid and that they're lying and that they don't know what they're doing and all that. You can say all of that, and I will still believe what law enforcement puts out as what they believe is the truth, or they're using the media outlets and information channels to stir up the mud, to lie a little bit to get things going. But excuse me. All right, so I was talking to Eric today, right? Now, I don't have a map. I'm new to all this, so I'll get it figured out. But Eric Williams was Libby German's Uncle Joe's friend. So he called him and he said, yeah, absolutely, come pick me up. So he went and picked him up and they went there. Well, when they got there, all the searchers were gathered around the drop-off point. And they were all like spreading out from that area. And he just didn't think that was the right thing to do, as far as, just a big group of people just, scattering out. This guy, he's pretty smart. So he and Joe, they decided to drive all the way around Hoosier Heartland Highway and down 200 and right by Richard Allen's neighborhood, as it turns out. And they turned up that dirt road and they walked the old railway track. So at the south end of the bridge, the railway continues. It's not maintained. It's not groomed at this point. So he even said it was thick brush, thorns, trees growing up in the middle of it. People hadn't walked through there in forever. Now, him and Joe, they're treating it as a search, so they split up. They spread out. And they're yelling the girls' names just like everybody is. Just like you and I would do if we were out searching for a lost child or children. We would be calling their names. Everybody would be calling their names. You see these news clips of people doing searches and they got sticks and they're poking the bushes and all that. I can't see it. I don't know what the hell all that is. I've been involved with a few searches and nobody was doing that shit. I mean, I tell you, you're screaming. I mean, you're yelling the names and spreading out. You just want to be in eyesight of each other so you can do a thorough search. Now, in the water's a different story. You have to be a little bit closer together. But if you're doing a search, you're going to be yelling people's names and searching like that. So that's what Eric was doing. And him and I have spoken a few times because I was really curious. Because he's the guy that had the slip. He was on the news and he said that, he's looking for he almost said victims, but then he switched it to girls. And he didn't think they were victims at that point. Anybody that talks to this guy for more than 20 seconds will tell you he is a straight shooter. He'll tell you to go outside and play hide and go fuck yourself. He's just a straight shooter. He's not one to pull punches, cut corners. He's like, yeah, I made a mistake. I can happen to anybody. So him and Joe went up towards the bridge from the south side, from 200, County Road 200, and along that field. And because the old railroad tracks is a very thin line of overgrowth and trees and stuff like that, and there's fields on either side of it, so it's not very wide there. So once they reached a certain point, and somebody did a video from the south side, you can see it slopes down from the south side. So once they got to that point, they're at the bottom where that starts sloping up, because they have to build up railroad tracks anyways. They can't have the train doing this number, so they build up mounds and all that. So right when he got to that point, a couple hundred yards from the bridge, they kind of veered off to the right and went down by the creek because there was a natural ravine there of what's called an invisible stream. Is where it's a water runoff, goes down there, and it's usually muddy and shit like that, but it's not impassable by any stretch. And it goes all the way down to the creek. Well, over time, just like the Grand Canyon, the water has made a little ravine there. And when I say ravine, it's not huge like, they are out in the desert and shit like that, but there's a ravine. So he said there was a clearing right there. It looked like somebody's had cleared it as part of their backyard at some point, but then they didn't maintain it. So there was saplings and overgrowth, but it was definitely at one point cleared. You can tell. He didn't use these words, but I can just picture, because I've spoken to him a few times, like I said. If somebody went in there with like a bush hog and a chainsaw and cleaned shit out, he said they kind of made it like their backyard, but then they just didn't do it anymore. And then there was also and the ravine, as he's going towards the Deer Creek on the left-hand side, it's kind of steep. And he said that somebody had used like a dozer or, a small piece of farm equipment with a bladed instrument on the front and made like a trail, a passable trail down to the creek. And why wouldn't you if you lived around there? So as it turns out, that's the Weber or Weber residence. So if you're looking down on a map, everybody knows who the Webers or Webers are. I think it's Weber. It's only one B. They obviously cleared out that area and made a little trail going down to the creek. Well, they also have ATVs. It's well documented that one of them actually him and his buddy held a couple of people hostage till the police got there because they considered them trespassing. They considered that their property when it's really not, but a lot of people do that. I'm not judging them because of that. A lot of people do that, but he said there was fresh ATV tracks, and he said he can still see the tread pattern. There's like little arrows, and he said, and the tracks went down, and then they went back up. And he said if he'd have gone up and looked at their ATV, he would have been able to tell anybody whether that was the ATV that went down there or not. So he went a little bit further. He's still a few yards from the creek, 20, 30 yards. And he finds this area that has animal bones piled up. And he didn't elaborate, and I didn't ask him. I wish I did now, looking back. But he said there was like skulls in the trees, animal skulls, rabbits and the such. He said, but then there was bigger bones, like cattle or coyotes and stuff like that. But nothing freakish. He said that he wasn't freaked out. He wasn't, It's obvious, probably teenage kids or whatever, they killed something and found bones and, just put them in the tree, just kind of put them in the nooks of the trees, in the V's and stuff like that. So, they weren't hanging in the trees by string or, eyeballs weren't poked through, eye sockets weren't poked through sticks or anything. They were just kind of sitting in the V's of the branches. Well, then he got to the creek area. And as it turns out, where he actually was, and this still bothers him to this day. Like I said, I spoke to him today, that if he went 20 feet out into the creek, right, or if he went 20 feet up the ravine a little bit, which was kind of steep at that point. The closer you get to the creek, the steeper that little ravine got, which led up to the Weber house. So if he'd have just gone 20 feet up that ravine or 20 feet out into the creek, he's positive he would have seen the girls. Now, his way of thinking, because he's such a good guy, is that he may have been able to save the girls, right? Because when they were doing the search, they were looking for lost girls. They weren't looking for for victims and bodies and stuff like that. So, but afterwards, when you find out what actually happened, you know, it kind of comes back at you, and you think, wow, you know, if I had just gone out into the water a little bit, you know, or gone up this ravine, I could have seen the girls. Maybe I could have saved them or helped them or whatever. But you can tell it bothers him. He's a really good guy. So he went back away from the creek and then up that little slope and got to the bridge, the south side of the bridge. Now, Joe said, fuck that. I'm not going across that bridge. And I'm not sure that I blame him. So he walked back to the truck where the truck was parked. And there was a gentleman standing there, or two. I didn't have him elaborate with that either, and I should have. But he had a flashlight, and they were like, listen, they're calling it off because it's getting dark. Now, from what I heard, it was midnight when they called off the search. Eric said it was just then getting dark. So one of the guys was at the end of the bridge, or the guy at the end of the bridge. I don't think that really matters at this point. Let him borrow, gave him a small flashlight. And as Eric was going across the bridge, he goes, yeah, it would have been hard during the day to get across that. So, you know, at night it was a little bit more tricky because some of the wood was rotting and splintering. Your foot could roll on it. And if nothing else, you twist your ankle or whatever. I don't think any of them, might be a spot or two where an adult could actually fall through, but I don't think there's many. I think I seen a video where Greeno actually went down underneath there somehow through a couple of those railroad ties that were missing. But he got over to the other side, and Joe was already there. He had drove around with the truck, got over to the other side, and by the time he had got across the bridge, you know, Joe was already over there. Now he's using this small flashlight he said he was looking as he was going, thinking maybe the girls went underneath the railroad ties, you know. And because you're trying to think of anything, these are kids. I mean, he said he was searching for these girls like he was their dad. He has kids as well. So, like I said, really nice guy. You guys have no idea. I've talked to him several times, and he's a really good guy. It's a privilege to know this guy. So he got to the other side, and people are still looking over on that side of the bridge. So the reason I spoke to him today is I had a couple questions that I didn't ask him before, right? Because this whole thing came up with in my head with Patrick Brown, how he had seen Ron Logan at 6:30 and asked for permission to search his property. Now, Ron Logan didn't say whether they were friendly neighbors. He just said they were neighbors. Now, we all have neighbors where there's no fucking way I'm going in their yard without asking them. So I didn't know if they were like that or not, but this guy felt like he had to ask Ron Logan permission to go in his yard. So that's why this Pat Brown thing came up to me. So what I wanted to know from Eric was, what time did you get down to the creek area? Because like I mentioned when I first started, we don't know a time of death. They're saying everything was over by 3:30, but we don't know that. We don't know that for sure. So they seem confident, but until they reveal how they come up with that number, I'm not sold on that at all. Excuse me. But this guy, Pat Brown, right? So is around 6:30, he asked Ron to search his property. Well, that's about the same time that Eric was on the opposite side of the creek. Had just got there, just down to the east of the Weber property, Weber or Weber, whatever. I'm sorry if any of them ever watch this, if I'm pronouncing your name. To me, Weber is Webber. I know some Webbers, so I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Weber, whatever it is. I apologize. I have a 3-letter last name, and people fuck it up all the time, so I don't feel bad. So I asked Eric, I had 2 questions for him today. What time did you get down by the creek? Right? And it was about that time. Okay? And we all know that in the fall that, it gets, spring ahead, fall behind with the clock, so it gets darker earlier. So that makes sense. That all falls into place. Well, then I asked him, I was like, dude, did you... Because he was able to see still. He said it didn't get really dark until he was on the bridge. So he was confident that he could have seen the girls if he had gone up 20 feet this way or 20 feet out into the creek, right? I said, did you see anybody searching on the other side of the creek? Or did you hear anybody? And he agreed, because he said, me and Joe were both yelling, and we were in yelling distance of each other. We're yelling the girls' names, obviously. And he said, no, he didn't see anybody. And he could hear people yelling, and he could surmise about how far away they were. He said, but nobody was that far down the creek as he was. And he could tell. The people that he ran into at the bridge had come across the bridge, stopped right there. They didn't go down that slope, or the hill, as they call it. So he was the only one that was down by the water that far down the creek, which is disappointing. I wish that he could have pointed out that he could have seen somebody. And I really trust this guy when he says he could surmise how far away they were, and they weren't anywhere as near that far down the creek as he was. And he could hear a bunch of people yelling, but people he could judge by the volume of their voices how far away they were. So, and I believe him. This guy's a sharp cookie. So that was kind of disappointing to me, because my point is, how did nobody find these girls the night before, the day before? How did nobody find them? We've all seen videos of the people going from the cemetery down to the crime scene area. People going across the bridge, down the hill, across the creek, all that. And yeah, I don't blame you, Teresa. Honestly, like I said, I don't have a POI. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm really new to this case as well. But I do, anybody that knows me, that listens to me, I'm here to tell you that Anthony Schott's account is the catalyst in this whole thing, this whole tragedy. But lost my train of thought now. Where was I? See, you get that? PB, and it really screws me up, Teresa. It's not your fault, and I don't mind. It's all these initials. I'm not used to the whole YouTube thing and what you can say and can't say, so people use initials for everybody. And I get lost in all these initials. Drives me freaking crazy. But getting back on the subject, so how did nobody find the girls, right? I've watched videos of people walking that area. Oh no, I agree. They were looking for living girls, but they were still spread out, and they were searching for them. Now, Eric told me him and Joe are the only two that drove around to the other side and searched that area. So everybody else was on the other side. Now, if you look at the maps, and if you look at the tons of videos that enthusiast is what I'm going to call them, web sleuths, whatever. They're enthusiasts, true crime enthusiasts that have gone to this area for no other reason than morbid curiosity. They're not trying to solve the case. They're not adding anything to the case. They just want to put videos out that they were there. It's like Disney World to these people, I guess. Being in law enforcement, that kind of shit makes me sick. But I've seen videos of people walking to and from the crime scene, staying on the north side of the creek. So, and it's not that difficult. It's not really that difficult from the cemetery down to that area. It's not difficult from the trail, coming off the trail. I guess there's a deer tree stand somewhere around there that's like a landmark. But I've seen several people do it. I've seen several YouTubers do it. And it's not that difficult to traverse. It's not. And I'm not talking about the murders. I'm not talking about the act. I'm talking about the search. You can't tell me that not everybody that was searching is 50 and older and out of shape and asthmatic or smoke or whatever. There's young people searching as well. I saw the videos. I seen some of those people, and they could easily traverse that area. And as you can see behind me right now, these photos, there's not a bunch of shit in the way. Yeah, that's a slope. That to me, that's not a hill. That's a slope. But how did they miss him? That really bothers me. How did they miss him? If they searched, I've heard that they searched all night, and there's some drone footage that I've got that'll come up behind me here in a minute, and also the chopper search. The wooded area is not that big. It's not. I don't know how the hell people hunt in there. Now, I'd imagine there's wildlife, sure, running through there, but Jesus, I'd be afraid to shoot a rifle or even a pistol in that area. So maybe it's bow hunting only or something like that, but it's not that big. It's not that big of an area. And with those trails and everything like that, I'm surprised they let people hunt there. And so it's not that big of an area at all. So it looked like there was a shitload of people there, and they searched for hours on end, some of them all night. Searched all night till the morning, till the sun came up. And then other searchers showed back up at 8. So how did they miss the girls? How did that happen? That baffles me. That is one of the biggest gaffes. I can't understand it. That just a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, and you put enough people out there. 50 people could have searched all the whole woods. Now, some people were searching the fields and the buildings in the area, the outbuildings, the barns, all that. So I'm sure that some of that time got taken up. But there's just no way they should have missed those girls. No way in hell. And Eric's like, I went out there. He said, I've been up for like 18 hours. We went hog hunting the night before, and I was, skinning a hog and all that and butchering it. And he said, so I was tired. I wasn't thinking straight. I didn't even bring a flashlight with me. He said, but everybody else did. Everybody was prepared. Everybody had flashlights. Some people had these big, huge spotlight flashlights. So where the hell how could you not see them? And the police were saying, well, there was a swale there. Okay. All right. There's a swale. If you look around the crime scene, the whole crime scene, this picture right behind me right now, it's down below. It's down below. So how, I just don't get it. I don't know how they missed them, but somehow they did. And Pat Brown found them. He parked his truck at the cemetery. Now, it's a little suspicious that he had to leave his truck there because he lost his keys while he was searching for the girls before he found them. And they couldn't find his keys. Now, they found the girls at like 11:15. I'm here to tell you that place was crawling with crime scene techs and forensics people who are looking for just that kind of shit. I mean, that's indirect evidence. Perpetrators drop shit all the time. So I went over that yesterday talking about evidence and stuff like that. You know, you drop your driver's license doesn't mean you killed him. Doesn't even mean you were there. Somebody could have took your driver's license and threw it there, but that's indirect evidence. So that's kind of sketchy at best. But they really have no. They cleared him. They cleared him, and his alibi was that cop who committed suicide. So a little sketchy. I agree, Teresa, with you 100% there. That's a little sketchy. So, and like I said, they find the girls at the crime scene, and it was the strangest crime scene that Ives has ever heard. Now, we've all seen the next day and the day after. There's damn near a beaten path trail that went from the corner of the cemetery all the way down to the crime scene. So, shit, 60, 70, 80 people probably in and out of there. That's why I'm not mad at Tobe for calling off the dogs. I've been involved with some searches, and I've had my ass chewed out for going off the road, looking for a juvenile that had escaped, and got my ass ripped up by the K9 guys because I tainted the area for the dogs. It was a swampy area, so it was iffy at best, and me and this other guy going in there didn't help at all. The dogs couldn't pick up anything. Probably could have followed me and him all the way home, but no, couldn't pick up anything. So that's one of my questions. That's one of the things. So the rumors, and if you guys think about this, right, don't think of anything that I just said. We're all assuming that they were horrifically stabbed and cut and slashed and nearly decapitated. We don't know that. You need to erase that. You need to erase it. We don't know. They could have been strangled. I don't like thinking of any of these scenarios, but definitely nobody's put out cause of death, manner of death, or time of death. Just that it was all over by 3:30. So that's my questions on the search and how they found the bodies, and how the time of death, cause of death, and manner of death has never been put out there. Now, some of these coincidences, just there's no way that they're random shit that's happened. If you look at this whole case, there's no way that this shit is random, right? And so, more rumors to dispel. The vehicle at the CPS, whatever it is, the old Children Protective Services building, and how did that come into play? Why did law enforcement use that and want to know about that? That's kind of fallen by the wayside. Nobody's even talking about that anymore. That was a hot topic for a hot minute. But then, okay, so did they find out who that was and then just decided not to tell anybody about it? But yeah, Teresa, if you watched any of my videos, Keegan Klein is involved. There's no doubt in my mind. I'm not saying that he murdered the girls or anything, but the Anthony Shots account is the catalyst for this whole thing, and he created that account, and that's some of the coincidences that I say there's no way they're not relevant. They mean something. He's the shit that they found on his devices back in February of 2017. He should have been locked up right away. right away. Should have been locked up for that stuff. They didn't arrest him for 3 years. I don't understand why. That's not something, you don't let somebody like that walk around and use them as a CI. Unless, I don't know, unless some of the stuff that he had were videos of children as young as 3 to 5 years old with adults. So maybe if they were local people, that they thought that they could actually catch the participants. They're not just exchanging this stuff, they're participating in it and filming it. So that's the only thing I can think of. I don't even like to think of any of that shit, but that's the only thing I can think of. Why the hell wasn't he arrested when they found that shit on his phone? I went through all the statutes in Indiana, and that's criminal deviant behavior, if nothing else. It's a felony. You don't let that guy just walk. But in the totality of it, if you look at all this shit, if he can give them a murderer, then, well, you know, I don't know what kind of deal they'd be able to make. But in my opinion, you have to connect Rick Allen to Keegan Kline. It could be like Kevin Bacon, you know, the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. We all know Kevin Bacon through 7 people. I know somebody who knows 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 Kevin Bacon. So it's the same thing. Keegan started this whole thing. 2 of his devices had the Anthony Shots account on it. They were both logged on at the same time with 2 different people talking on that account because they use different verbiages and stuff like that. It's definitely 2 different people. So there's no doubt about that. Now, how big did that get? Doug Allen's talking about it's a complicated case. There's far-reaching tentacles or something to that point. I can't remember the verbiage that he used, but it makes sense to me that, and I've read the transcript of the Keegan's interview, and it's disgusting. I don't know if you guys read it or not, but it's disgusting. Yes, I'm from Mass. Actually, I used to work for the Red Sox. I wore a 3-piece suit, and I sat in the locker room and dugout, and I worked directly for the owners. Took care of all their assets, including the players, Fenway Park, all that. Actually, I've lost my accent. I've been down here 30 some odd years. I would have said Fenway Park when I first got here. I ask my wife all the time when my friends call from back home, you know, they're, how are you, kid? And, you know, I was like, man, did I sound that stupid? Did I sound like a retard? You know, like that? She goes, oh, yeah. And she's from Mass, too. But, you know, I was a guy. You know, the stupider you sound, the cooler you are, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea. It was a dream gig. I'll go into it sometime, but I was born in Charlestown, went in the Air Force. My last 3 years in the Air Force, I was over in Guam. I had just gotten married. My wife and I had 2 children over in Guam. They're actually dual citizens. 78 degrees, slight breeze every day of every year for 3 years. I loved it. Played golf, softball. I got back home, got that job with the Red Sox one winter. I was sitting in a luxury box, twiddling my thumbs, 2 feet of snow on the ground at Fenway Park, and I'm sitting there to make sure that no BU drunk college student jumps over the fence and spray paints a big penis on the green monster, you know. So I was like, screw this, we're moving south, you know. So that's my wife is like, absolutely, let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, you're welcome, Teresa. You're welcome. So, and that's why when I get out of the service, it was kind of a recession, and coming to Florida was triple recession. So, I got a job in law enforcement. Told my wife, there's 2 things you'll never get laid off for: law enforcement or trash collection. But I should have went trash collection because that's all you can eat too. But I hated law enforcement, to be honest with you. I did it because I had a wife and 2 small kids, and I needed a job, and they were hiring. So, but as at the end of the day, it was okay. It was a job. Once you're there for 10 years, don't blink. You're there for 10 years, you might as well stay the rest of the time, But getting back to this case, so if Keegan Kline, he admits, now he tries to put everything off in this interview. Now I really want to see the videotape of the interview. Also, the one they did in 2017 when they initially interviewed him, they referred to that during this transcript of the interview. So I know that they videotaped his interview from 2017, and why wouldn't they? But I want to see it. I'm not an expert, but I'm trained in nonverbal communication, body language. I even took lip reading, for Christ's sake, But I would want to see how he responds to these things, because it's not just what people say. It's not just their nonverbal communication. There's no tone of voice in a text. That's why I don't like texting. I'm 58. I grew up talking to people, not texting with people. So sometimes it comes across that I'm being a prick when I'm really joking. There's no tone of voice in a text. And just a simple drill that when you take courses on this kind of stuff, on interviewing, interrogating, and stuff like that, to pick up on fluctuations. Some people are really trying to deceive you, as you can imagine. So, but there's certain things they just can't do. It's not going to work, And fluctuations in the voice, if you can get their mind occupied elsewhere. These detectives that interviewed Keegan did a great job. Now he's not the brightest person in the world, I'm here to tell you. He's got the IQ of a retarded clam, and he's a sick bastard. But it was easy for them to get his mind off of something, get him thinking of something that made him comfortable, and things like that, and then start hammering him with these questions right away. And that makes sense, and it works. And that's how you got to pay attention to fluctuations in voice. And there's a sentence that they taught us, and I'll never forget it. And it's a simple sentence. And if you wrote down on a piece of paper, I didn't steal the car, right? Simple sentence. But it depends which word they fluctuate with. So if they say, I didn't steal the car, that means, okay, I didn't steal it. Somebody else did. So now you know who stole the car. Now that's what I'm going for. I think you know who stole the car. Or I didn't steal the car. Okay, what? You borrowed it? You found it? Do you see where I'm going with this? Or I didn't steal the car. Oh, you didn't steal the car. Would you steal the stereo out of it? Was that what you did? Somebody else stole the car? So fluctuations in voice, really, you got to pay attention to it. And small little things like raising of the shoulders and the eyebrows and stuff like that. And don't take this the wrong way, I'm not sexist at all, but I can hear my wife roll her eyes. I don't even have to see it anymore. I know what all of the there's like 4 or 5 different heavy breathings. That means I'm an idiot. So I'm fully aware of all that. So you have to pick up on that stuff. You have to be in tune with it. And the only way to do it is to do it over and over and over. And we would do it to each other, and it gets old and you feel really stupid. It's almost as bad as defensive tactics. And I'm here to tell you, in defensive tactics, they teach law enforcement just enough to get your fucking ass kicked. You try to do some of that shit in a real fight, you can either fight or you can't. You'll get your ass kicked trying to do the shit that they teach you. You might as well just pepper spray them and tase them and get it over with so you don't get hurt. So if Keegan Kline's not involved, I'll eat my hat. And like I said, I'm not saying that he's the one that murdered the girls. I'm not even saying that Rick Allen did. Now, if you think back right at the beginning of all this, Doug Carter, when he showed the picture the day after or 2 days after, he showed the picture of the bridge guy. And they said, this is the person that is responsible for the murders of these girls. Responsible. They didn't say, this is the guy that killed the girls, right? Responsible. And I couldn't find it. I looked for it, but he also made a statement somewhere around the 2019 presser when they put the audio out, right? The second part where because first it was just down the hill, and then they put out guys down the hill. Well, we all know, and everybody's suspicious of the fact that that's definitely an altered clip, audio clip. I'm not saying that they altered it to try and trick anybody. There may be something involved with that clip that they didn't want anybody else to hear in between those two phrases. But he made it a point to say, keep in mind, this is one person speaking. Why would he even say that? Did you follow me? Why would he say that? One person speaking. Of course it's one person speaking, right? We're all talking, this is the guy who killed the girls. No, that's not what he said. He said he's responsible. So we don't know. I would kill to see the audio and video from her phone. As bad as I would the interviews that they took, the video of Keegan during his interviews and the audio of those. But to see what's on her actual phone is, I don't think that it was just 43 seconds. There had to be more than that. How did she throw her phone down on the ground? I mean, that baffles me too. I have all kinds of questions, trust me, about the phone. It's to me, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. But I'd want to see that recording. Now, if he's saying that, well, that you keep in mind, this is one person speaking. Well, why would you say that? Why would you even allude to this is one person speaking as opposed to more than one person speaking? You know what I mean? And there's a gentleman who follows this case, and he goes around to a lot of the podcasters, and I got to meet him through a Discord channel from Unresolved Crimes, from Frank's channel, and his Discord channel. His name's Charlie Murphy. He sent me an audio clip today, and I'm going to put it on, that he was able to slow that down, the guys down the hill. And I'd heard before that you could hear maybe a gun cocking or whatever, which I find it hard to believe. I mean, hardly anybody has pistols anymore, but if you think about it, that's smart. If you're going to kill somebody who committed a crime, you use a 6-shooter. None of the shell casings come out of it. They stay in there. Unless you have to reload. Then you could drop one, I guess, but if you need any more than 6 shots, you don't know what the hell you're doing. This whole accuracy by volume, just pop, 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 that doesn't work, trust me. It doesn't at all. So learn to shoot. That's the key. Learn to shoot. If you go, especially you ladies, if you have a gun, please shoot it. Learn to shoot it. Don't be a victim. I'm not saying, if you're walking out of a 7-Eleven and somebody's walking in with a gun to rob the place, keep walking, go get in your car. But if you're stuck in there and they're shooting and you're behind some stuff, I don't care. First thing you see is toe, his nose. Shoot that son of a bitch. Don't be a victim. So he made a point. This is one person speaking. Well, then he also made a statement that they know what they did to those girls. Now, that doesn't mean it's plural. It depends how you use that in a sentence. It doesn't mean it was plural, but it could have been a slip. Could have been a slip on his point. He's pretty sharp, though. Doug Carter's a very nice guy, and he's on top of it, and he's sharp, and he knows how to manipulate the media. People think he's stupid. He's not stupid. He's very good. So the search, how'd they not find the girls? That drives me nuts. Drives me ape shit. The whole phone thing. When they were looking for the girls, there is a chip in iPhones. It's called a beacon chip, and the one she had, I think, was a 5C, if I'm not mistaken. I looked it up though, and it definitely has this beacon chip, and that's a marketing tool that stores use in malls, and a lot of people use it. It puts out a small signal, and that beacon chip sends back a signal to that, and it only goes out like 50, 60 feet or something like that. So it's a marketing tool. They know what stores, how many times you come into their store and stuff like that. Well, they could have used that. They have handheld beacon units that they could have used that will go out like 400 feet. They may have been able to find the phone and the girls earlier than that. That whole pinging the phone shit, that doesn't work. You got to triangulate. The only thing that'll do is let them know a general area where you're at. It doesn't pinpoint, not by any stretch of the imagination. If it bounces off a tower, you put a circle around that tower. If it bounces off another tower, you put a circle around that tower. And if the two circles overlap, there's a good chance that you're inside that. Doesn't mean that you are at all. Depends on the weather. Depends on which cell company you have, how many dishes they have on those towers and stuff like that. I showed my first day ever talking to Frank and those guys, and Charlie Greer. I don't know if you guys know Charlie Greer. He has a YouTube channel. He does a YouTube video every day. He's fantastic. This guy's met everybody. He's from LA. He's in his early 50s now. But anyways, we were all talking on video, and I showed people I live on 2.5 acres here. Right across the street from the house, there's a cell tower. I was so pissed off when we first moved here. I called the cell phone company, and I was like, Osama bin Laden's uploading videos from a fucking cave in Afghanistan. I've got a cell tower right across the street from my house, and I got 2 fucking bars, Well, they told me that, well, that's because none of our dishes are on that tower. So you can see my point. They wouldn't be able to triangulate anything when it comes to me. But yeah, exactly, Teresa. If there's only 2 towers in Delphi, then there's no way to. There is digital footprints, but you're not leaving breadcrumbs. People don't need to be paranoid, But getting back to Keegan Klein, he deflected everything except for the Anthony shots, right? When it came to the CSAM on his phone, well, there could have been this other guy. He had my phone that I was living with, and he had the PIN number and all that. Could have been him, or the Dropbox. No, I didn't have a Dropbox. Yeah, he had a Dropbox. Blah blah blah. But when it came to Anthony shots, who had that account? Nobody. So who was talking to the girls? I was. And I'm here to tell you, he was as shocked as anybody when he found out that that whole ski mask incident. I don't know if you guys know the whole story behind that, but he was actually catfishing this girl that he knew. He knew the family very well. He spent a lot of time with them, went on vacations with them, hung around at their house, knew them very well. And the daughter, she was about 16, I guess. He was catfishing her with the Anthony Shots account, getting illicit photos from her and stuff like that, soliciting all kinds of things. Well, one day she thought she was going to hook up with Anthony Shots, so she sent her address and said, "Hey, my parents aren't home after school. Come on over, we'll hook up." Well, she gets off the bus, gets home, and there's somebody wearing a ski mask outside her window. Right now, I'm here to tell you that Keegan Klein does not need her to give him her fucking address. He knows where she lives. So you got to do the math there, I don't know. Tony, I think Tony's involved to some extent as well. And we're going to find out when this PC comes out. We're going to find out exactly what happened. So I don't care how much they redact it, we'll be able to get a good glimpse at what's going on with the case, what kind of evidence they have. But that's the things that I just want to talk about, little things that piss me off, and try and get people thinking, back to square one. They got an arrest on this guy. Now, it's not a coincidence that Keegan Klein's in jail. He's been sitting there. They've been putting the screws to him. You can tell by the interview, they're like, well, who's this person? Who's that person? We know you did this. We know you did that. And you got to think that Dropbox, they know everybody that accessed that Dropbox. When he was talking to another male with that Emily 65 or 64 account, whatever it is, Emily Rose, whatever, they checked that guy out. And whoever that guy is talking to, they've subpoenaed his shit. So this stuff all takes a long time, and that could be the tentacles, because it takes time to get all that information. And then you got to investigate the next guy, and then the next guy, and then the next guy, and then eventually you get to Rick Allen. So he's not a patsy. Rick Allen's involved with this, and Rick Allen is bridge guy. And I'm saying that because law enforcement is saying that, and I believe them. The judge would not just sign a warrant for his arrest for no apparent reason. But if we go back, Keegan's in jail. Now, if you add up, I don't know if you guys looked up all his charges. They're level 4, 5, and 6 felonies. And if you just go with the recommended sentencing, which is half, so if it's 1 to 6 years, they recommend 3. He's looking at 68 years, right? So ISP signs him out for the day for a field trip because they're finding out information. People think law enforcement is not doing anything. They are. They're getting all this information back from subpoenas. They're doing stakeouts. They're doing digital stakeouts, physical stakeouts. They're investigating people. They're putting the screws to people. They flip everybody they can flip to get to the next person. They want to find out who killed these girls. They want to know who's using the Anthony Shots account on February 13th. That's what they want to get to. Okay. And that's what they got to. So that's what they're trying to figure out. So they're putting the screws to Keegan Klein, right? And he's in protective custody, PC. So he's kept away from everybody. Inmates don't have access to him and all of that. So he's not talking to anybody. So they're talking to him. So nobody knows what's going on, is what I'm getting at. I've seen it a million times. Okay, these guys are isolated. The only time they come out is take a shower, and when they go to rec, they go by themselves. Nobody can see or hear them. And the only other time they come out is for 1 hour a week for a visit, 1 hour if they have an attorney, and whenever the detectives want to come snatch them out and bring them down to the interview room and start putting the screws to them, which they do quite frequently. So, and they will take away privileges. Like you'd be amazed when you've been in jail for 2 years. Pen and paper means a lot to you if you're indigent. And they take that away from you. And you'd be amazed what these people talk for. But if you get some information out of them, right? They bring them on this little field trip. They sign them out for the day. And then all of a sudden they're searching the Wabash River, right? The Wabash, Wabash, whatever. And, that wasn't an exercise. That was a lot of resources there. There was a lot of people there. And they were searching like hell there. Well, 5 weeks later, they're done with the search. They wrap it up, right? And it just so happens that Doug Carter flew in that day, right? So I think he personally wanted to talk to Keegan, is what I think. But the next thing you know, Keegan's attorney puts in for and gets approved for confidentiality. So Keegan's given information now. He's definitely cooperating, and that shit's sealed. Okay. So, and then they drop 5 charges. Now that happens all the time. in CSAM cases because of the victims or the victims' parents or whatever don't want to testify. You have the right in this country to confront your accusers, so they have to testify in court. Now, it doesn't mean they're not cooperating. They just don't want to go through it, and you can't really blame them. So that happens. I'm not saying that's what happened in this case, but and it's only 7 years off of his sentence. Those 5 cases off of 68 years, only 7 years would come off. So they may have been cases where Keegan was embarrassed, believe it or not, so there's those 5 cases may have meant something to him. And I'm sure law enforcement wouldn't even tell him. If these people wouldn't testify, they're not going to tell him that. They're going to use those cases against him. They know that they can't prosecute him, but don't show your hand yet. And wait for him to say something and say, all right, well, we'll take these cases off, even though you don't have them anyways. So, law enforcement's not stupid. They keep enough smoke and mirrors going and pay no attention to the guy behind the curtain shit. So he gets these cases dropped, and now he is negotiating. And that's cut and dry. That's right on my case. You can read that it got bumped out because he's negotiating with the prosecutor. So there's a reason he's negotiating. What the hell does he have to negotiate with? And this detective that I was talking to, when I asked, why didn't they arrest him in 2017 when they found that shit on his phone? It's a little fishy. Do you think he was cooperating? He's like, fuck no, man. You lock people up for that shit. Toot sweet. If he wants to cooperate, he can cooperate from jail, or fuck him. You don't leave people with kiddie porn out on the street. It's not going to happen. So that had to set me back a little bit, because I thought Keegan was cooperating all the way from 2017, but apparently that makes a lot of sense. But this is a murder case. It's a double murder case, so you'd be surprised. And do not be surprised that if Keegan Kline is involved with this, that they give him time served. If he's able to give them who killed these girls, and he's responsible for these arrests, he's going to get time served. And I know that sounds putrid, and everybody's had enough time to build up a hate for this guy, but he's a nobody. He's a nobody. He's an internet pervert. There's much worse people walking the streets right now that made deals with the devil. The prosecutors made deals with the devil, and there's people walking the streets that may have to register as sex offenders, but they are pieces of shit. And because they help with other cases, they're out on the street. So don't be surprised if that happens. If Keegan Kline gets time served or probation or house arrest or something like that, you'll know. You'll know for sure that Keegan Kline's the one that solved this. Now, he's a piece of shit, because if he does help them solve this, that means that he has known for this whole time, and I believe he has. I don't know if he's loyal or afraid or what, but he's a piece of shit. Pure and simple, piece of shit. Oh, he's gonna be a piece of shit. He's never gonna turn his life around. I don't care about this. Get him help. Let him go to counseling. All that. Now he's a piece of shit from way back. It's in his DNA. I mean, the apple doesn't fall far from the fucking tree. So that's my point that I wanted to make, was let's slow down with assuming things. I don't mind theories. I don't mind speculation, as long as they're not guided speculation. You're not saying it just because some podcaster's saying it that you like, or that some wild, off the wall. I've heard and seen some chat that it's like, what the fuck is wrong with these people? Some of the shit they come up with is crazy, man. But if it's informed theories and speculation, if it's like I said, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but you know, I do have a lot of law enforcement experience and life experience in general. So, so I, you know, I don't consider myself an expert on too much on anything actually, but when I come up with a theory, it'll be it'll be based on, you know, a lot of thought and looking at the totality of it. Right now, we don't know when they died, how they died, and the manner. So we don't know time of death, cause of death, and method of death. So we don't know any of that. So we need to get off that whole knife thing. That's the 4 kids in Idaho. That was definitely a knife. They put that out. But these girls, we don't know how they got killed at all. So if we take it from there, and then you just take the shit that we know, and I don't care what you think of murder sheets at all, what their motives are, or what have you, because Kevin's an attorney, he has access to things that we don't. So good. Amen. Now, putting out that search warrant doesn't hurt law enforcement at all. It doesn't affect their investigation whatsoever, but it just makes people lose their fucking minds, you know, and putting out that transcript has made people lose their fucking minds. These web sleuths, podcasters, law enforcement, everybody got it wrong. This guy, Richard Allen, was on nobody's radar. We still don't know what capacity he's involved with this, but to me, Doug Carter said Bridge Guy is responsible for these girls' deaths, and now he's saying that he is Bridge Guy. So I stand behind that. I think Doug Carter's doing his job, doing it well, and he's not really showing his hand. But I'll tell you what, you can just tell that when he can let loose, he's going to. I don't read many books. I'm one of these, I'll wait for the DVD people. But if he writes a book, I'll read it. I'll definitely read it. He's a good guy. He's good law enforcement. He's an asset. He's an asset to everybody out in the world. Trust me. He's in the right job. Takes a special man to be like he is, to lead people and put up with the bullshit and deal with the press. You know, I got a lot of respect for that man. So I really don't even like going an hour with these, because I'm a firm believer in the mind can only absorb what the ass can endure. So, you know, when you're sitting in class and shit like that, your ass starts hurting, you stop learning. So I just want to thank you guys. This is the first time I've done it with live chat. I don't know if anybody tried to come on through Discord, but if you have Discord, I have my own channel. The link's in the description. You can join that and you can chat with me anytime, because I'm retired now. I do less than nothing. I'm also injured. I have to get both shoulders replaced, so I really can't do too much. And once I get the surgery done, it's going to be even less. So I enjoy talking about this stuff and talking with people about this stuff. So if you join my Discord, you can talk to me there. Okay. But thank you, Teresa. I mean, I met you on another channel and stuff like that. Maybe if you do have Discord, you can get on there and you can tell me how to do some of the stuff with the chat. I don't even know what moderators do, but it seems to be the hip thing to have moderators. So I need to learn all that stuff, and I have zero. I have the IQ of a retarded clam when it comes to stuff like this. All right, so thank you guys. I appreciate it, and I will catch you next time. Oh, and just so everybody knows, every time I start one of these, I say that my name's Ruckus and I'm 10-8. That means I'm on duty. And at the end, I say I'm 10-7, that means I'm off duty. And just so you know, in the middle of a podcast, if I say I'm 10-6, 10-100, that means I have to pee. So you guys have a good night. Hope you have a great week.